Hey guys, so today we're going to be making a simple scrunchie, but we're going to hand sew it closed.
Yep, we're going to hand sew it closed, so it will be invisible stitching. So this is a little bit of a different technique than what we have done in the past, but it does give a really nice clean finish. It also works really well for knit fabric. So today we are working with a knit fabric as opposed to a sturdier cotton fabric. This one's really soft, and I do love knit fabric scrunchies because they're very soft on your hair and soft on your wrist. Now we are going to go ahead and get started. I do want to identify that there is a right side of the fabric and a wrong side. So the right side is the one with the print. It's the one that the world will see. So often I refer to this as the pretty side. Okay, so this fabric, we're going to fold it right sides together. And this fabric is a little bit lightweight, so it's easiest if you lay it flat on a flat surface and just kind of line up the edges. So we're going to line up those raw edges so they are even. Now, with this method where we're going to use the hand sewing to finish it off, we want to leave the 1.5 inches on each end unsewn, okay? So to remind Braylon not to sew there, I'm going to mark it with a pin. So I'm just going to approximate about 1.5 inches from this end and 1.5 inches from the other end. So now we have pins on each end, and what Braylon is going to do, she will grab sewing clips and clip in between those two pins, okay, to remind her not to sew the ends shut. All right, so go ahead and add your clips there. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and sew everywhere where she has a sewing clip. Okay, so we're at the machine. There's a couple of things that I want to mention first. Before we started recording this, I actually changed the needle, so Braylon will be using a jersey needle because this is knit fabric, so we want to have a jersey needle, and then we also put a walking foot on here. Now, this particular machine came with a walking foot, but you could also order them separately. It works really nice when you're using knit fabric because it kind of helps keep it from getting stretched out unevenly. So the machine is already set with a jersey needle and a walking foot. That makes it a little bit easier to sew the knits. Now go ahead, Braylon, and change this to 0.4. We're going to do a zigzag stitch. Once again, we're doing that because this is a stretchy fabric and the zigzag stitch works better. So starting at that first pin, you're going to line it up, go underneath the walking foot, and line it up. So I have the tape marked at 1/2 inch. So we will be sewing this at 1/2 inch seam allowance. I will put a magnet on there as well. Magnets are always so strong, it's hard to slide. So she's going to sew this from one pin to the other pin. Go ahead and you can do a back stitch as well, okay?
Okay.
Alright, so she has sewn, like I said, straight down, but we left the edges unsewn. Now at this point we're going to turn it right side out, so we can use this tube turner. I'm going to put the purple tube inside, scrunch it up, and kind of leave that end folded over. And we talked about in our other scrunchie videos a different way to flip it out using a safety pin, so you can always refer to that as well. But basically we just need to turn it so that it's right side out, okay? Now this is where it gets different from the other ways that we've done it with the sewing machine, because now we have two ends that are left open. We want to bring these around. We're going to match up the two ends, like the raw ends here. And we're doing this pretty sides kissing, okay? So I'm lining up that end. And Braylon actually has not done this very often, maybe just a couple of times, but we're gonna clip that. So you wanna grab a clip for me, Braylon? Go ahead and clip that. Or Perfect, and just do one more right in the middle just for fun. Alright, so now what she's going to do is go and sew using a zigzag stitch just like we did before, the same seam allowance, and she's going to sew a straight line straight across there, and that's what's going to connect the circle, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we have the machine set at zigzag at 0.4. Now at this point I would take off one of these top clips, but just kind of try to keep the piece together there and slide it underneath the presser foot. And if you do this and you find that it's too hard to sew these pieces straight together, you could leave more area unsewn at the end. So you could maybe do 2 inches or 2.5 inches. But now what we have, we're lining up the raw end with that 1/2 inch, and she's just going to sew it straight down, kind of straightening it out as she goes until she gets to the other end. Alright, so we have it lined up to the 1/2 inch. She's going to sew just a straight stitch down until she gets to the other end. Because of the angle and how it's kind of all bunched up, I would start using my button to kind of move the needle up manually. And I did it 3 stitches, so Braylon, you can start off right now just doing a back stitch. Okay, so she went ahead and she sewed those edges together. That was kind of hard, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit hard because it kind of tries to curl up on you. So just take your time. The best part about it is no one's going to see what the inside is going to look like because we're going to flip it over, okay? So now we have this hole that we are going to thread the elastic through. So go ahead, if you want to put the safety pin on the end of that elastic. Now our elastic right now is 7 inches long. You could also do it a little bit longer. If you buy a kit for me, then you're going to have elastic that's 7.5 inches longer, so you could cut it a little bit shorter if you have thinner hair or whatnot. But so this piece is 7 inches. What we're going to do is we're going to drop it through one side of the open tube, okay? So I'm going to feed it through here, and what my goal is going to be is for the safety pin to come out on the other side. Okay, so I dropped it through. Now the safety pin is right here. So like I said, my goal is going to be to move the safety pin to the other side of the hole. So I'm going to start sliding the fabric onto the safety pin, moving it in the opposite direction, kind of bunch it up, just keep sliding it through. So every time I'm hanging onto the safety pin the whole time. So now I'm going to hang onto the safety pin, slide that fabric. So you can see it starting to scrunch up, right?
Yes.
Alright, so now the hole is right here. I've made it all the way around. I'm going to pull my safety pin out. Take the safety pin off. Take the clip off. Okay. So before we do our hand sewing, we are going to go to the machine and we are going to, so we're going to overlap these 2 ends. We're going to overlap those and we're going to go sew a zigzag stitch right over the ends here, so that way the elastic will stay together in a loop. So right where that pin is at, we're just going to do a zigzag stitch right there, and then it will loop together, and then we can hand sew it shut. Almost done. Okay, so we're back at the machine. We are going to leave it in 0.4 in that zigzag stitch. I did change the presser foot. I changed it back to our normal presser foot. I prefer to have the regular presser foot as opposed to this walking foot for the next part, because the walking foot is really bulky and it's harder to see the small area that we're working with. The other thing I would recommend is if you are using a sewing magnet, go ahead and take that off. So we are just sewing, like I said, just that 1/4 inch right there. So the best thing to do, keep that keep that sewing pin, keep that straight pin in, line it up underneath the presser foot, and lower the presser foot down. At this point you're going to hold that fabric out of your way. I like to manually start it, so if you have a button right there, you can use that just to get a few stitches going. And then go ahead and take the pin out. Put that off to the side. All right, Braylon, so go ahead. What I want you to do is I want you to go forward 3 stitches and then do a back stitch and then go forward. So try to sew it. If it gets really knotted up, that's okay too. We can just go ahead and end it. Like I said, our goal is just to basically knot this fabric up. Alright, so she got the elastic sewn, and like I said, we just kind of knotted it up. It doesn't have to look pretty, we just want to make sure it's secure, okay? So all that's going to get hidden. So now, it's starting to look gorgeous. We just have to sew that hole shut. Now you do have the option, of course, to kind of line it up and do a straight stitch on your machine, but it's really hard to get close to the edge. So what I prefer is to hand sew it. So go ahead and grab some clips. Alright, and I already have a needle and thread ready to go, so that helps. What we're going to be doing is an invisible stitch, okay? So, do you see, I just kind of folded it over so those two insides are facing each other. So right along the fold line, I'm going to start on one side. Let's pull it. I'm going to kind of tuck that knot inside. Okay, so the knot is kind of hidden. What we're going to do is just go back and forth in between the two folds, okay? I'm going to take the needle and goodness. And there will be more information about this in the directions if you buy a kit. For me, I'll have some better pictures, but basically you're just going from side to side, grabbing a bit of fabric on the fold. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna let Braylon go ahead and take that. Okay, so now she's made it all the way to the end. So what she's gonna do is sew it through, and she's grabbing a little bit of the fabric. You can kind of see that there's a loop, so she's tucking her needle through the loop, and she's going to pull it. And when she does that, it's going to make a knot. I want you to do that 2 more times, and you can kind of just keep grabbing right underneath that same spot. Once it gets to be a loop, go ahead and slide the needle through the loop and pull it. Okay, so once we have our 3 knots, go ahead and I want you to stick the needle through the fabric just to kind of come out in a random spot. So go close to the edge where you have your, right where the thread is at. Go close to the edge and just kind of pull it through randomly, and then pull it tight, and then you're going to grab a pair of scissors and cut the edge of that off. And that kind of hides the tail, okay? All right, and there you go. All right, so now you're all done. Once she knotted that off, the hole is sewed shut, and you have a beautiful scrunchie with no visible stitch lines. So there you go. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.